Why do I feel guilt and shame for not living a life that would please my parents, or for living a life that meets societal standards? Why do I feel guilt and shame for living in a way that would not make my grandparents happy? Because you were programmed and conditioned to. You were taught at a very young age that you are supposed to do what your parents and your grandparents and the lawmakers and the government tell you to do. You were taught at a very young age that if you do not do what the government, what your parents, and what your grandparents tell you to do, that you are bad, that you are wrong, and that you deserve punishment. Therefore, it is actually, per your conditioning, very natural to feel guilt and shame when you deviate from the plan and purpose that those who raised you and society have told you is the plan and purpose for your life. Okay, I get that it's natural for me to feel guilt and shame, but I don't want to feel guilt and shame for following my heart and for raising my child the way that I feel is best for me. And I don't want to feel guilt and shame for giving my attention and time to the things that make me happy and bring me joy. I don't want to feel guilt and shame for marrying the person that I want to marry, even though that's not maybe who my parents think I should marry, or for believing things that maybe doesn't align with what my grandparents believe or my family believes. I don't want to feel guilt and shame for this. Even though I understand why I feel the guilt and shame, I don't want to feel it anymore. So what can I do to free myself of the natural feeling of guilt and shame that pops up when I follow my heart and when I choose not to spank in moments that my parents probably would have thought it was necessary, or when I choose anything that's different than what society or my family thinks I should? You see it. You look within yourself when the pattern of shame and guilt arise, and you know when it arises because you feel it. It does not feel good. And then you look and you notice that there is an opportunity to give into it or to make a different choice. When you feel the guilt and shame, you sit with it and you acknowledge that you are feeling this because you are choosing to follow your heart, because you are choosing to do something that feels true for you, that is safe, that is okay, that's not going to hurt anybody, but it's just not what your grandparents or your parents would choose. And then you acknowledge that there's an option here for you to no longer beat yourself up about it, but to instead empower yourself and remind yourself that you are free. You are not a slave to the way other people think you should live your life. And you make the different choice. You make the choice that feels best for you. But you can't make that choice if you don't start the habit of acknowledging that the choice is there. And you can't acknowledge that the choice is there if you don't pause and sit with the emotion, the feeling, the sensation that arises when you are triggered and when you are feeling the guilt and the shame. Oftentimes, it's a thought that arises that tends to trigger the emotion of shame and guilt. So the next time it happens, and ongoing as a practice, notice the thought, smile at it, because it doesn't have power over you anymore. It only has power over you when you're not aware. When you're not aware of the thoughts you're giving your time and attention to. So allow the thought to arise, look at it, and be like, oh, that's the way that I used to think. I used to agree with this. I used to identify as this thought. I used to believe that I actually have to feel bad about X, Y, Z. But I don't. I don't have to feel bad for living my life on my terms, for making choices that feel true for me. I don't have to feel bad about it. I can choose freedom. I can choose empowerment. I can choose to be myself unapologetically. Well, what if my family, or what if people don't want to talk to me as much or hang out with me as much or want to be around me as much as I continue to make that other choice that feels true for me? Oh, well, at least the people that do show up in your life and that do want to be with you and spend time with you while you are being true to yourself, at least you'll know that they're actually there because they genuinely want to be and because they like who you truly are and not who you've been programmed and conditioned to be. Your child will also be very grateful because you'll be experiencing more joy and more peace the more that you make choices and do things that feel true for you. And that joy and that peace will positively impact your relationship with your child. And your child is going to love you, even when you start to make more choices that feel true for you. You will never lose the people that you are supposed to have in your life by being true to yourself. You will only lose the people who are only able to be around you when you are not being your true self. You make room in your life for the money, the people, the relationships, the friendships, the memories, the magical memories. You make room for that in your life every time you make a choice to do or say something that reflects who you really are, instead of saying or doing things the way you've been programmed and conditioned to. Every single trigger in parenthood is helping you to make the choice to react and respond in the way that is true to who you really are. But in that moment that you are triggered, the friction you feel is because you have that choice that you can make, which is going to feel good for you and reflect your favorite version of yourself as a parent. That option is coming up against simultaneously the option to do what your mom did to you, what your father did, what your grandparents think you should do in that moment, what society thinks you should do in that moment. So that friction when you are triggered is a choice point. And every choice you make, every time you make the choice to do what feels true for you, your whole life starts to shift and change and reflect your true self, who you truly are. Hey guys, so if you guys are ready to quantum leap from parenting in a way that feels icky and that just feels stressful and full of tension and resistance and power struggles and spanking and screaming, and if you guys are ready to quantum leap into parenting from who you truly are, from your favorite version of yourself, and you'd like to be supported as you do that, book a call with me.